Hello, good afternoon. Nice to have you here. As Des said, I'm a student still being molded by Professor Ingrid, Bruce, and then the rock star, Susie. So my work today I'm going to present on is more on what I did the last time. What I did the last time on work productivity. We've already seen this morning about the economic impact of MS, which is huge. Along the line, researchers have looked at how does MS symptoms affect work productivity, and a snapshot of that is telling us that increase in MS symptoms do affect the productivity of people living with MS. So we were much interested in then what happens in the long term. So since we have the information with the help of some of you who take part in the Australian MS longitudinal study, we have about 5-year data on the symptoms that people report every year and then their productivity for that 5-year period. So while we're much interested in that, okay, if the snapshot shows that the severity of the symptoms affect people living with MS, their productivity, how does it look like in the long term? Because this one will help us to get to know how it is in the long term, and if we are planning interventions, then interventions will be targeted, or long-term interventions will be targeted towards those findings that will come across. So our work much concentrated on, So what we're much interested in is that what is the pattern of the work productivity of people living with MS over a long-term period? And then the second part is that what are these factors that actually impact the productivity over a long-term period? So the people who were involved in this research are actually those who took part in the Australian MS longitudinal research. And we had about 2,121 people who provided at least 2-year data over the 5-year period. Because the analysis we did, we needed a 2-year data at least to get the person involved in this analysis. And then we evaluated that what is the change of work productivity over time, and what are those factors that influence this change over a period of time. So in describing the pattern of work productivity over a period of time, we decided to look at the 1-year change and then the 5-year change. So if we look at a 1-year change, we are saying that on average, between 2015 and 2016, the average work productivity was around 84%, which is a great news because it means a lot of people are still living with MS and performing well at their workplaces. And 38% of these participants had no change in their work productivity over that 1-year period. So it means, on average, if I was having 84% work productivity in 2015, I was able to maintain this work productivity the following year without any change in my productivity, which is a good news. And within these people, about 93% of them had 100% work productivity at the start of the year. So that's majority of those who had at least the average of 84 had a productivity of 100% at the beginning of the year, and they maintained this productivity the subsequent year. Then we also saw a sample about 31% of people who had a decrease in their productivity. And then we had another group of 31% who had an increase in work productivity. So for the pattern, we had 3 groups. First group, the one who has no change in the productivity. The second group is those who have a decrease in their productivity. And the third group is those who have an increase in productivity. Then when we looked at the 5-year change, this is what we saw, which is quite similar to the 1-year change. We saw that over the 5-year period, there was a reduction in productivity, but it was very minimal, about 0.2%, which is almost minimal. And then within that group, we had about 41% of the participants who had no change, which is a huge number, between 2015 and 2019. And similar percentage, about 93% of these who had no change in their productivity had a work productivity of 100% at the beginning of the year of 2015. So it's telling us that whatever we are doing, whether it's research or disease-modifying therapy or whatever it is working, because it's keeping a lot of people at work and they are still more productive at work, even though sometimes because of the awareness that we are being diagnosed of MS, we think that we are not performing, but actually we are doing, or you are performing, you are doing well at work, because majority of you are still doing very well at work. Then we also have another group, which is almost 30% of people within the 5-year period who had a decrease in their productivity. And a similar group of 29 had an increase in productivity. So for the 1-year change, we saw the same 3 groups of people, and then for the 5-year change, we saw the same 3 groups of people. But the interesting or the important thing is that majority of these within the groups are people who had a higher productivity, and they were able to maintain that productivity over either a 1-year period or over a 5-year period, which is good news. So we then decided to look at what could be the factors that are influencing the change in productivity. So we looked at various factors, and we looked at disability, we looked at the MS symptoms, and we realized that it's not just the individual symptoms or symptom severity that are impacting the productivity or the change in productivity of people, but it's rather the changes or the fluctuation in those symptoms, the up and down of the symptoms. Maybe my depression is low today and tomorrow is high. That fluctuation or instability of the symptoms, that are the ones that are influencing or impacting more on the productivity than just only the symptom severity. We then decided that, okay, we'll look at which particular symptoms independently impact the productivity of people living with MS. So in doing that, we realized we identify about some symptoms. We have depression, walking difficulty, spasticity, fatigue, where the 4 main MS symptoms, we usually measure about 13 of them, which these were the 4 main ones that were independently impacting so much on the productivity of people living with MS. And that is about 1.24%, 1.23%, about 1%, and then 0.68% of their productivity over a 5-year period. Previously, a work has been done in a snapshot showing that a cluster of symptoms impact the productivity. So in our analysis, in a long term or in a long form, we also decided to look at those clusters and see whether we will still see a group of symptoms together impact productivity of people living with MS. And in doing that analysis, we saw that pain and sensory symptoms together, feeling of anxiety and depression together, and then fatigue and cognitive symptoms as a group of symptoms were the ones that were impacting most on the productivity of people living with MS. So what are we saying? What we are saying is that even though the severity of symptoms affect productivity, we are also saying that the changes in those symptoms, the fluctuation in those symptoms, the instability in those symptoms impact more on the productivity of people living with MS than just the severity. So if we are dealing with, or we are assessing as a neurologist or as MS nurse, if someone tells you that my symptoms keep, or you identify the pattern that it keeps changing, you should look further to see how does that affect the work of that individual, because it's more likely that if my fatigue is up and down, it's going to affect the way I perform at work. So don't just assume that maybe today my fatigue is down, tomorrow is back to where it was, and the next day is back to the lowest level, and you think that, oh, that's not so high, so it's all right. But it's telling us that the up and down is affecting the performance of that individual, and you need to pay much attention to that. We are also saying that in caring for people with MS, we need to involve other people. It's not just the neurologist, it's not just the MS nurse, but we need to involve, especially when it comes to productivity, We need to involve occupational therapists who are professionals, well-trained, to get to know more about how that affects their work or their performance at work, and then collaborate with them so that we can help people who really don't want to get out of job. They still want to remain at job and still perform and feel like you are much involved in community than just we allowing them to drop off because the symptoms are impacting too much on their lives. So how do you get involved in this project? The project is still ongoing. We have the Australian MS longitudinal study still happening, and it is an annual survey. Professor Ingrid talked about it. I think other people have talked about that project. We have it online, it's available. Please get involved, give us more information. We want to know, and over a long period of time, what is actually happening and how do we intervene and how do we support, so that at the end of the day, we'll be able to provide solutions or answers to some of our unanswered questions. This project is giving us much ideas about what is happening, and then more programs will come up where programs will be designed specifically to target people living with MS and how that can improve their work productivity. These people contributed much to the project. Some people contributed so much to data collection, sending surveys over the years for me to get the data to work on. And then with the help of other co-authors, they helped to refine the work. And today, at least, I'm standing here to present it. We also want to thank the MS Australia, Australian Multiple Sclerosis Longitudinal Study. They have really supported the project over the years. That's Multiple Sclerosis Research Australia has supported this project over the years, and we will continue to appreciate your funding and support towards this work. Thank you very much.